What's up and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today we're continuing our James Bond preparation marathon with the 18th film in the series and Pierce Brosnan's second outing. It's Tomorrow Never Dies. Released in 1997 by director Roger Spottiswoode, I think this is a fun installment that I'm not entirely sure they were ready to make, but they did it anyway. The nice thing about it is that they seem to realize just how silly and empty the plot was, and they just kind of went along and embraced the ridiculousness of the film, and I think it works for the most part. Anyways, I'll try not to review this film with bunkum, but let's get cracking. This review is brought to you by the word of the day, bunkum, insincere or foolish talk, aka nonsense. Tomorrow Never Dies heads James Bond against media mogul Elliot Carver, a Steve Jobs wannabe that is after exclusive media rights, but is unable to obtain it because China is holding out on them. So to get them out of the picture, Carver is pitting China and the UK against each other and writing about their deaths before anybody hears about it. His company, Tomorrow, not only writes the news, they create it, and James Bond has to stop them and stuff. This film's just silly. I mean, you can't watch it and not see Steve Jobs in Jonathan Pryce's character. He's wearing the same stuff, he has the same stage presence, and everybody knows his name. Beyond that, his acting is just out of this world bad and corny. But, bad in a funny way. Yes, sir, we will do this evil thing for you. Delicious. It's just silly. But even though it's ridiculous, I would say that I probably had a better time watching this movie over GoldenEye as a general rule. That won't reflect in my end score since Tomorrow Never Dies is mostly forgettable and empty in its plot while GoldenEye wasn't, but if we were just looking at how fun each movie is, this one probably takes the cake. I also appreciated the mega use of Bond gadgets in the film after the previous movie kind of lacked in that department. They clearly listened to the fans and offered them more cool gadgets, which again made the film a more fun experience. Pierce Brosnan did pretty decently in his role again, and I don't know how important this is or not, but I think his James Bond looks the best when he's shooting a gun. It's a weird observation, I'll admit that, but that's just what I noticed. But when I'm forced to compare this to other Bond films, it's hard not to notice that GoldenEye was a better film for Pierce Brosnan. It was more memorable, and it's even considered to be one of the better Bond films all around, as it's been made into more than one video game. That's because the villainous plot in GoldenEye felt more original. The villain was much more believable in general, the locations were really good, it might be aged here and there for the visuals, but GoldenEye was more of a superior film all around when we're being honest with one another. I thought a majority of Tomorrow Never Dies, while fun, was mostly safe. I never once thought that they were trying to make a memorable Bond film or craft an unforgettable plot or make a villain that actually seemed threatening. It's just a fun movie. But fun movies in a massive series like this will only get you so far, so let's go ahead and talk about the end score for a second. From an unbiased, technical level, I would easily say that this movie is decent enough. After all, it is a blockbuster, so they will be focusing on certain areas behind the scenes that'll stand out at least in some way or another. That being said, it still has some faults, primarily in plot building and originality. Because it's trying to be more fun than anything else, it sacrificed being smart or clever. That unbiased score is 72%. My biased score is a little bit higher at 76% because, again, the film's primary focus was to make you smile and just to have a good time. And I did have a good time. But that doesn't mean that I'm not still a little bit bummed that it's not nearly as good as the other Bond films that make their mark in different ways. Averaging out the two scores together, we come to the final rating of 74%, 74 out of 100 possible stars, granting Tomorrow Never Dies with a letter grade of C. I wasn't really expecting much out of this movie because I've never really been a massive fan of Pierce Brosnan in the role, even though I kind of grew up with him in that role. He's just a silly Bond that can't stop making pun jokes. Now, I like a good pun joke. I love reading them online day after day, for example, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't chuckle whenever Bond would crack a pun after a big action set piece. But because I'm still hung up on Timothy Dalton and how he repurposed the puns to work in a better, more serious light, I'm just a little bit sore over that. Bond doesn't need to constantly make a joke anymore. That doesn't define him. But again, it is the 90s, and when you're in the decade of 90s cheese, there's not much you can do about that. Let me know your thoughts on Tomorrow Never Dies in the comments section down below. Is this your favorite film of the Pierce Brosnan era of Bond films? And if not, let me know which one is. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this review, because there's always more like it coming out each and every single day. Hit the subscribe button and bell to be notified when I come out with my next Bond movie review. And until then, peace out!
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert. He is the #1. up with us.